Hello guys, how you doing? It's Wally here, and today we're going to be working on the mob farm again. Um, if we have a look, since last episode, I've grown a tree. No, since last episode, I have smoothified all of the walls just to satisfy my limited sense of aesthetics. And yeah, I've been farming the wood like crazy for chests to make hoppers and also to make pistons up. Now, today we're going to be looking at the design of the farm. Now, frankly, and you're probably getting tired of hearing me say this, but work has thrown a spanner in the works for tonight. Instead of spending the last 4 hours recording, I've spent the last 4 hours working. It is a Sunday night, so go figure. So instead of normally, I like to sometimes I like to design on camera in survival, and sometimes I design in creative off camera, and then I will build it and explain to you, what's going on, why I'm doing what I'm doing, even if I don't build the whole thing on camera, which, a lot of stuff is repetitive, so, that sometimes it is done in like a kind of a clip show format. But today, with mob farms, I generally design in creative because there's a fair amount of work, and you'd be forever pulling stuff up and building new stuff and then tearing it down and over. So, it doesn't really make great video in survival, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to design it in survival as well, because the best way to design a mob farm is in an ideal world, and as we all know, ideal worlds are hard to come by. So we're going to do something that I'm not sure that I've ever done before. We're going to go into a creative test world, and I'm going to try and get this thing designed, if not built, tonight, in this episode, and bring you along for that process. I don't know how much I will do on camera, because even in creative, mob farm design can be fairly tedious. So, yeah, that is what we're going to do. As you can see, I've got four and a bit stacks of hoppers, which is a reasonable start. We got a space there. Good, excellent. Right, so yeah, four and a bit stacks of hoppers. Now I've built this big column, and what this column does is it tells me how high I can go and still have an LC of 79, because it makes sense to take advantage of this height. If the LC is going to be 79, we might as well build all the way up. Now I decided against having the farm sort of below that level, like one block below here, so we could have an LC of 63, I believe. And the reason for that, I think, is this torch that's keeping, and possibly the light from the portal that's keeping the LC 79. Actually, I think we could build up to this block. But the reason for that is air blocks. For mob farm efficiency, as we all know these days, unimpeded air blocks level your spawning pads is important. And I don't particularly want to clear this water out any further. So we're going to build it above the level of the water, so we've got all that unimpeded space. Obviously, this stuff is not going to be here anymore. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up a creative world, and yeah, let's have a look at some ideas. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so we're in a creative test world, which is basically composed of stone, and a layer of slabs on top. So there are 0 spawning spaces. If we hit E, we've got 1 entity. I think that's either the entity in my hand. No, it must be myself. So yeah. What to do? Right. So I've decided, rather predictably these days, to go with a shifting floor design for our farm. And let me explain why I'm going for that. In let's grab some fence post will do. In the mob spawning mechanic, the algorithm starts by picking a random air block in the world. Say it picks that one, and then it will go plus or minus 5 blocks in one direction, and then the same in the other. So maybe it goes this far in this direction and this far in that direction, and then it tries to spawn a mob. If it can spawn a mob, it will pick what type of mob based upon the types of mobs that can spawn in that block. It will also, when it sees if it can spawn a mob, it first tests to see if the block below it is solid or presents a solid face. So even though that's an upside down slab and it's not a solid block, the top of it is solid. So it's a valid spawning space, and it checks that it's got an air block or not an air block, a non-hitboxed block to actually spawn the feet in, and a transparent block of some type above it. So, for example, that. And then it sees if it picks a type of mob, tries to spawn it, and then if the hitbox of the mob will intersect, well, really we're talking about collision masks rather than hitboxes. If the collision mask of the mob would intersect the collision mask of something else, it won't spawn it. So, for example, a spider can spawn on this block because it's not tall enough to intersect this, but a creeper or a zombie or a witch, they can't because their head would be stuck in this glass pane. If we replace the glass pane with that, nothing can spawn on that block because it's got a solid block above it. Okay, now here's the reason why we're gonna go with shifting floors. After it does that, success or fail, it will then do the same plus or minus 5 in both directions. So let's say that, and tries to spawn the same type of mob again, and then it does it, say maybe that, and then it does it again, and then maybe let's say that one there, that, and it does it again, and it does it for up to I think 5 mobs. Now this is why mobs appear in packs, and this is why we're going to use a shifting floor design. Now basically, because of this kind of, you see how they're kind of spread out and they're not in straight lines, a shifting floor will give you a higher chance to spawn a large pack of mobs with it on the pad, basically, as opposed to piston pushers, where you're going to get a reduced chance of that happening. It also gives you a sheer weight of numbers in spawning space over piston pusher designs, but there's a price to pay in the fact that shifting floors are generally slower to kill the mobs, because a piston pusher can push a mob immediately off the spawning space without any delay, and they're going to fall straight down unimpeded. Now a shifting floor, it depends on your design. If it's on a clock, it's got to wait for the clock to cycle for the floor to start shifting and drop the mob. If you're using tripwire, then you're going to run into problem to detect the mobs. You're either going to end up with tripwire on the blocks that they're spawning on, and that's going to kill your rates because it doesn't count as an air block, so the spawning algorithm can't start if it picks one of those blocks. And if it's at head height, it's not going to detect spiders. So the floor won't know to start shifting. So what I want to do is I want to see if it's possible to either eliminate spiders without impeding air blocks, or to make spiders detectable without putting the tripwire on, actually on the spawning pad itself, but still have it one block above. So the way we're going to do that, I've got this idea, I've not tested it, but we're going to just make a little faux spawning pad there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to replace some of these with fence posts. So spiders spawn in the middle of a block, and the middle of their spider's body is in the middle of that block. So they need a 3x3 because spiders are nearly 2 blocks wide. So you can have a block and a half-ish in that direction, block and a half-ish, block and a half-ish, block and a half-ish. So by putting a fence post here, one of two things has happened. Any of these blocks surrounding the fence post have either now become invalid for spider spawns because they would collide with the collision mask of this, or they're going to spawn, but the fence post is going to push them up and hopefully into the path of the tripwire. If that makes sense. So actually, let's figure this out. So we're going to want that, and then there's going to be a ring around them, and then that ring around. Now I believe, because this fence post doesn't occupy the block above it, yeah, you can still put a block there. I believe this is not going to stop the spawning algorithm from starting if it picks the block above this fence post. So yeah, that's why I've decided that this is what we're going to test. So if we do that, now obviously we are cutting down the number of spawnable spaces on this platform, but you know, I would rather try and detect the mobs than run it on a clock like I've done with the Ender Farm. I just think it'll be faster. Okay, right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go up here, so we're out of range, you know, further than 25 blocks away. We're going to turn it to night, and we should start seeing spawns. Hopefully. Come on. Sometimes takes a while for the spawning algorithm to kick in, I've noticed. There we go. So we got Skelly, we've got zombies. And what I'm going to do is I am going to occasionally cycle the difficulty. So we'll cycle it to 0, and then to 3 again. Ah, so spiders can spawn. That is interesting. Right, so time set, day, cycle the difficulty. Right, so this is reasonably promising. The next thing to do, excuse me, is to grab some tripwire hooks and lamps. There we go, and some string, and pop, let's see, like that. We'll do this like this, pop these along here, put lamps on there, and then I'll repeat that pattern without the lamps on the other side, or maybe with the lamps, and then put string between a grid of string all through that. So I'll do that off camera. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so that is done. Let us cycle the time again. Now, what we're looking for here is, will the spiders A, trigger the lamps, and B, will they immediately trigger them? Oh, you silly man, just a sec. Okay, fix that one. So yeah, will they trigger the lamps, and will they trigger them immediately, or do they need to have a wander around first? So, let's have a look-see. Ah, right, that's the zombie doing it. Ah, so he will trigger it, but he needs to move first. Now that is a shame. That is a shame. Let's cycle that. See if we can see that again. Sorry, scratch my neck. Okay, so that's a creeper. You see, the reason I'm worried about that is because they might not move. We're going to be so far away from them, they might actually just stand there. Okay, let's cycle that again. Come on, spider. Come on, spider. So, yeah, how are you doing? Are you well? Good? Yeah? Taking care of yourselves? Okay, spider. Yeah. So I wonder if that can be solved somehow. I don't really want to cut down it on any further like area of spawning space, but what if we were to you see, we could do this and make them this close apart, and it's still going to be a fair amount of spawning space, but well, it's worth a go, isn't it? Okay, I will basically replicate that. Can I do this without breaking the string? No! Excellent. I will replicate that across the board and come back to you. Okie dokie, so we've done that now. I've done that. And let's see. Whoa! Okay. Well, that wasn't too informative, was it? Cycle the difficulty. Come on, spider. Oh, he's right on the edge. Is that a fair test? Also, I do not seem to be getting any pack spawns. Right, the one that didn't move near the skelly there is not setting the lamp off. So I believe that that is a bust. If they're if they're not actually on the center of their body needs to be on in order for that to work. Interesting. Okay. Thing is, there's no way to stop them spawning at all completely without actually invalidating air blocks, and I would really rather not do that. So I think we'll go back to the layout we had before, and yeah, we will take the increased spawn rate there, and we'll look at how the tripwires are going to trigger the floors, I think. Okay, Give us a moment. Okay, so I've expanded the pad out to the width it's going to be, which is 12 blocks, the maximum a piston can push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It'll probably be 13, 14, 15. Three blocks longer that way, simply because it will fit it within a chunk, and also Redstone can, mind you, actually we might as well make it 16 wide because we're not going to be powering it through a line of redstone. So yeah, it'll be 16 long, I guess. But what we need to figure out, I'll put a block with a tripwire hook over here. Not counted it really, but what this is, basically, we're going to want, when this tripwire is activated, this to send like a pulsing clock signal down to this piston. And the reason it's so far away is because we're obviously going to have to transfer our signal down, and I don't want it right next to the spawning pad, because of the whole unimpeded air blocks thing. So anyway, yeah, what I'm going to do is I am going to design, what we want is a clock that when that is triggered, the clock will start pulsing, and it will pulse for a pretty short time, until the, or do we need it to time? Do we need it to use time? We could just use it, have it pulse until, yeah, that's what we want. We want a pulsing kind of clock affair that will run while this is triggered, and then when the mob falls through, it will stop. Okay, so I've come up with a couple of designs. One is this one here. So what happens is when the tripwire is tripped, the redstone block is pushed down, and this hopper becomes unpowered, and we've got a wooden spade in there. So it sends power through this comparator into the redstone comparator block, redstone, comparator block, which needs that on, and another comparator into a block underneath the piston. Now the advantage of this is it keeps this this area here, which is impeding our air spacers, quite far away from the farm. The rest is down there. The disadvantage is because the wiring is so low, it's going to cause trouble with putting tripwire on the second level, because these blocks are effectively in oh, I can't in this area here. In fact, it's even worse than that. That's a disastrous design. They're actually down there. Huh. Right, so this design is not gonna, that's not gonna fly. The other design I've got is this one. The first bit's the same, and then it basically, the powers this piston with a block on, redstone block on, which does the same to the next, which then powers this. Disadvantage here is reduced space here between this bit and the rest, and that's because if you have any more of these, the third piston turns into like a T flip-flop and starts pulsing the block back and forth, like, for each activation it will move from there to there, and then the next activation from there to there. So that is not going to work because it will really slow down the clock. But yeah, so we have to bring it closer in. However, it's a lot better than that. Now I've figured out that we're just going to kill all the air blocks on one side of the farm. Shame I missed that. Anyway, I'll show you this one work. There you go, you see that piston is pulsing. Now the only thing I am unsure about, I know that mobs can't spawn on pistons, but can they spawn on redstone blocks? Now I'm fairly certain that's been tested, but I can't be bothered to look it up. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, if we run over this way, I mean, if they can, then it just means we have to put half slabs on top of them. We might be able to adjust it actually. If they can't, that's brilliant. Right, let's just, hello, world holes. Slap down a random pad of redstone blocks and see if we get any spawns on it. Doesn't have to be tidy, I'm just giving it some spawning space. So we will make sure we're in hard, and then times at night. Are we going to get any spawns? Spawning? Come on. Right, okay, I'm gonna, yeah, there we go. Okay, I will go and modify the design over there to take that into account. Okay, so I have modified this design again, and it vastly reduces the number of impeded air blocks to 1 per row. What I've realised is we can use a bud here. So when the tripwire is activated, this block is powered and this piston is bud switched. So using a clock to provide an update means we can basically have it extend as if it's directly attached. And I've just had another idea, which is probably slightly expensive, but I wonder, using the comparator gives a very weak signal, but what if, I don't know if this takes signal strength into account, the tracks, the powered tracks, and how long will they go? So not super long, but we could run a couple of clocks, perhaps, or we could move this clock into the middle and have it power out from either side. That's what we can do. Yeah, so that is a super big improvement over what we had. Means we're basically powering this directly. Let's remove this so you can see. Hopper clock, comparator block piston. Now, unfortunately, when this extends, it's going to go down into the airspace as it will kind of extend down to this level. Oh no, we've already decided we're going to swap this from one side to the other, so it doesn't matter, but it will extend down into the air block area, which is a shame, but you know, we can live with that. It's only going to be blocking the air blocks when there's mobs already in line with that. So that is our piston pusher for that side. What we need to do now is have it so that when there is a block here, this piston is going to extend. Okay, so yeah, I've done a bit of redesigning. I realized that, well, firstly, I realized that the design I showed you last still had that problem, that the blocks that the comparators were on were going to intersect with the string. And I put quite a bit of thought into this, and I really, honestly, I cannot see a way around it. Basically, I think we're going to space these floors 3 blocks apart instead of 2 as I had originally planned, which is a shame, but you know, them's the breaks sometimes. Yeah, I guess. Hey, you know what I could do? I could have one floor in this orientation and then rotate it 90 degrees the next floor to have it on the other orientation. That's it. And then we can still have the floors 2 blocks apart. Oh, awesome. Right, let's have a look at these circuits I've made here. Yeah, so this one is modified. It's better. I thought instead of using a bud switch with a clock, which is kind of server intensive, a torch. A torch will power a piston from a block away downwards. Now, unfortunately, we still need to cover over this redstone block here because I don't, thinking about it, I haven't tested it, but I don't think, no, so the torch won't power that piston from there, which is a shame, but one block per row I can live with. Well, it's actually 2 blocks, there's another block over there, and it is a fair bit away. On the other end, so let me explain it. Tripwire turns off the torch, retracts the piston, pulls the redstone block from over this hopper. Item goes back and forth, comparator pulses, this piston goes bup, 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 and hits this. Now, this is, I could actually replace this. Now I think about it, I could go back to having this affair, and I'm not sure. I don't think it's two ticks of delay or a piston extension. I don't really think it's going to make a difference. Yeah, not sure on that one. I guess pistons are slightly more resource intensive, but not by a lot. And in fact, I realise I don't need to cover those pistons up. I can leave that uncovered. So that's on that side. The other side is very similar, except the piston here is facing this way. So when the torch goes off, it retracts over from the front hopper, which is read through the block by the comparator to hit this piston. So this side, the pistons are extended by default, because we're locking the item into the front hopper rather than the back hopper. So the result is that happens. So the next thing to test is, I guess, does this actually work? Because I don't really know. Theoretically it should. Yeah, let's have a look. We should get some mobs spawning soon, hopefully. Come on. I think the sun needs to go down a bit more. Time. Oh, there we go. Right, okay, so the zombie fell through. This guy is not actually setting the floor off yet. He needs to move, which is the big downfall of this. Well, those guys are going through nicely. Oh, yes. Nicely. Let's cycle the difficulty. Oh, come on, Spider. Move. I really want to see... It's a good point. I won't want... Hell, witch. I won't want Enderman spawning in there because they'll require a bigger drop to be killed. So, yes, I'm sorry. I clicked my fingers at the mic. That spider went through. Let's cycle the distance. I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, it is important to have the floors 2 blocks apart to stop Enderman spawning. Right, let's try that again. Come on. Okay. Right. Move. Oh, they've wandered out that way. That was one thing I really didn't want them to do. We'll know when that spider is the cause of... Oh no, that is... that's a bit of a problem there. This spider... Oh no, he fell through. It took a little while, but he did fall through. Quite a bit to think about there, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly MC edit this thing up into the sky and see how it runs. So yeah, give us a moment. Okay, so I've moved it up in the sky, into the sky through MC Edit. We're a bit close here, so let's just see how it works. hopefully we should see some pack spawning. Well, yeah, hopefully we even with one level, we should see a fair amount of a fair number of mobs spawning. I don't know what, I kind of did it roughly in MC Edit, so I don't know where I moved it to. Okay, so we've got an LC of 111, which is not fantastic, but yeah, it will be slower than it would be on the server because I wouldn't make that mistake. The LC will be 79, so yeah, come on, here we go. So we've got some spiders. This is the interesting test. Yep, straight out of the farm. I am going to have to think. I'm going to have to think of a way of stopping that, but without impeding the air blocks. If anyone has any ideas on that, I would be really, because if I can't figure a solution out to that, all of this is going to get wiped. I'm going to have to go with a clock, basically. Let's see these guys. Come on, you should at least fall through. Yeah, I think that's a big problem. Oh well, it was a fun little project to design these things, but that is a bit of a deal breaker. Spider did fall through there, I think. But I think I'm going to have to go with a clock. Just like at the Ender Farm, which is a crying shame because I quite like this setup. But short of putting some slabs in there to stop the spiders spawning, which I guess I could do. Let's have a look at that really quickly. Really quickly. Okay, so I put slabs over the top of the fence posts. This should stop spiders being able to spawn. There'll be no 3x3 spaces. I put slabs above the slabs just to stop the other mobs walking on top of them and being immune to the shifting floor. So let's have a look and just see, can we live with that? I didn't want that, I wanted that. I don't think it makes a difference to the rate of spawns, but okay, so I do like how they instantly fall down rather than waiting for the clock to cycle. Although the Enderman farm does work really fast for dropping mobs. But yeah, that might be what we have to do, you know, guys, is just stop the spider spawning. We've got plenty of sources of string on the server. We don't really need any more. But that is, this is so all I have time for. It is 20 past midnight. I need to edit and render this because the episode is getting long, about 40 minutes or so, I think. But yeah, so tell me what you think of me showing this design process kind of stuff in creative in my videos. Is that, do you want to see more of that sort of thing or what? I don't know. But yeah, until next time, guys. Take care of yourselves. Drops.